4 Black Americans kidnapped by Mexican cartel. 2 of the survivors spoke with Anderson Cooper about the incident. They first share about how the kidnapping went down.
What happened when you crossed over?
We turned down this little side road because we was going to see if that led us to the destination and we was going to turn around. We heard a car beat the horn and pulled around us. Zindell was in the back seat. He said, "Don't stop." He saw a gun.
We drove through a few streets and corners until we got back on the main street. And that's when a gang of shooting started. Zindell and Shaeed, they jumped out to run and they were gunned down. They was at Tay window beating on her window with a little gun, probably a 9mm. And I jumped out of the driver's side. And when I jumped out on the driver's side, that's when I was shot in both legs.
We was on the ground for maybe like 10 minutes after they took everything from us. And I guess whoever told them to just go ahead and bring us with them, that's when they loaded us on the back of the truck.
So that's the violence that led to them being held hostage. What about the poor medical treatment they received?
We rode probably 10, 15 more minutes, and we got to the spot where they was taking us. The investigator or interrogator us more. And that's when Shaeed said, "I love y'all, I'm gone." And he died right there.
Those
in
were
the
his
back
last
of the
words.
truck. Yeah, that he loved us and he was gone. That was the last thing he said.
And that was in the back of the pickup?
Yes, sir.
Were you able to say anything to him, or?
I just told him I was sorry.
The cartel took us to a clinic after we left from the spot where they was questioning us at.
They told us, they was like, I guess after they kept asking us and our answers never changed. They said, well, we're gonna get y'all some help.
And what kind of treatment did they give you?
They put my leg on a 2x4 and then they stitched it up.
They just stitched it up?
Right.
Did they give you?
No pain medicine or nothing.
What about Zindell?
Me and him was in the room together. And he was fighting for his life and they ain't do nothing. They told, after he didn't fight so long, they was like, they was gonna take him to the hospital. Then they came back like maybe an hour later and it was like he was dead.
Just horrific. But there is still more. There was some shocking, bizarre, cruel behavior that they also underwent.
Like one of them was sitting by a chair, like where you sitting to, and he was looking at something on his phone. And I can remember the sound of that day of when it happened. Like I can remember the gunshots, the noise, and I heard it. And I asked him, I said, "Excuse me, is that us?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Can I see it?" And he's like, "Hold on." And he turned the phone around and he showed a video of us being kidnapped and stuff like that.
One of the gunmen actually showed you the video that we've all seen of you being kidnapped on the street.
Mm-hmm.
You're a woman in custody with cartel gunmen. Were they threatening to you in violence, in sexual violence? I mean,
yeah, they said all that stuff, all that.
They did.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They tried to make us have sex with each other,
And we
but
told them we was brothers and sisters.
brother and sister, and that she was pregnant.
Wait a minute. They tried to make you have sex with each other.
Mm-hmm.
What did they say to you?
They was like, "What are y'all?" We said brothers and sisters. And they was like, "Have sex with each other." I was like, "No, these are my brothers. I'm pregnant."
How much more horrific can it get? You're with your friends on your way to another country for one of your friends to undergo an elective surgery, and this happens. 4 Americans involved are LaTavia Washington McGee, Eric Williams, Shaeed Woodard, and Zindell Brown. The cartel had likely mistaken this group to be Haitian drug smugglers. Woodward and Brown did not survive the encounter. How McGee and Williams were released by their captors. Let's get into that. Washington McGee and Williams were woken up in a dark room to see a man standing over them with a light. He was like, "There's nothing that we can do to bring your two brothers back, but we're sorry. Somebody made the wrong call. They was high and drunk." Washington McGee recalled the man saying. At one point, Washington McGee and Williams were blindfolded and taken to a truck. Williams said his friends' bodies were then placed on top of him to keep him hidden. But eventually they were dropped off at a wooden shack where Washington McGee and Williams were rescued on March 7th. The survivors and the bodies of their friends were brought back to the United States. Washington McGee said, "She tried to escape twice during the ordeal for my brothers to have the proper burial and for us to go back home to our family and kids." The Gulf Cartel apologized for the incident. Yes, apologized. An apology letter was issued by the Gulf Cartel, which is believed to be responsible for the kidnappings, and the group handed over 5 of its members to local authorities, according to images circulating online and a version of the letter obtained by CNN from an official familiar with the ongoing investigation. CNN cannot confirm the authenticity of the photos and has asked Mexican and U.S. authorities for comment. Now, though investigators believe the letter to be authentic, Mexican and U.S. law enforcement officials participating in the investigation strongly doubt the sincerity of the group's apology. The official who shared the letter with CNN said, "At least 6 people have been arrested in Mexico so far, according to Mexican officials." I guess it's a large question that I have, a global question with how do we even unpack this, Jessica? The horror, the layers of horror and violence. How do we even process it?
It's an interesting world where many mainstream news, and it's especially true for the United States, we get the story, what has just happened? We don't get the context of what's happened through history to lead us to this point. What's the context of what's going on in the system? They really like to frame stories as this unique experience of here, there was a bad actor who did something that was not so good. Here's the story of what happened, keeping it at the individual level. So that's very disconnected from the systemic injustice that's led to situations like this happening. We can't talk about this in a way that's disconnected from history. The United States government, under the Reagan administration and beyond Reagan, sold drugs to the Black community especially, and then criminalized crack cocaine way beyond other forms of cocaine. This was all intentional, right? The United States also had the leaders of multinational corporations have deep ties and be the lawyers for multinational corporations and then serve as the head of the CIA and foreign policy establishment. So those people decide we're going to destabilize countries in Latin America so that we can exploit their labor, extract their resources. We cooed countries all across Central and Latin America from the 70s and beyond. What's the consequence of that? People have a destabilized political system and economy. They're selling drugs and engaging in the illicit economy just to get by, selling drugs to the United States, to communities that the United States government had a role in getting people addicted to drugs. And then 3 generations beyond slavery, you have people deciding to travel to another country. They somehow, against all of the odds, have resources and are deciding to do this. It's a whole other scenario that the healthcare in the United States isn't very good. And even if you want elective surgeries, people are going abroad for them. And then you are faced with violence. You're basically mistaken as someone who's a member of a Haitian drug cartel. Meanwhile, while we're championing Ukrainian refugees being taken in by other countries, the Biden administration has deported more Haitian refugees than any other administration. So when you consider all of this that's going on surrounding this situation, the violence begins far beyond the drug cartel. And it's frequently the same actors in history that we can trace violence back to.
Wow. What you just chronicled is a reminder that context is everything. It's absolutely everything. And I found myself, it was such horrificness and shocking, okay, because we're all placing ourselves immediately as soon as we hear of this, like, oh my goodness, what do you do? And I believe the coverage, which was considerable, was because of the shocking act that was caught on camera. I then stepped back and said, if these were fair-skinned people, white people, I think it would have been tenfold. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. We won't know in this case. But that's where my mind goes yet again, the devaluing of certain people, certain skin colors. And I want your take on that because it seems to fit the context of that narrative, that chronicling that you just went through.
Yeah. Would someone who is white be mistaken for a Haitian member of a drug cartel? Probably not. But let's just imagine there was a world where they were like, okay, we're expecting some kind of shipment or dealing coming from the United States from people who are white, and they get the wrong group and they get kidnapped. That video would probably be viral on Facebook. We would probably see constant national coverage of what happened in prime time. And there would probably be attempts to bring justice and actually federal prosecution, maybe even for the death that they had to witness of someone who was their close friend and family member. And so, of course, it would play out differently. We don't really hear a lot about, I don't know, situations where people are on vacation where something like this happens, where we don't have a video of it, but the compelling nature of being able to watch something unfold. Why are people indifferent and not engaging with the clicks when the victims of violence are people who are not white, right?
Wow.
That's at the heart of it as well. It's beyond just a racist system of justice. It's beyond racist news. Why are everyday people who are on the internet indifferent from that? I think people have this mistaken idea that you are only racist if you are denying people rights. It is racist to see people not as full human beings, to be indifferent to their suffering and their violence. And it's time we have that conversation far more frequently.
Wow. Well said, because honestly, it's as if, God forbid, I would have been thinking, are they even going to come for me? Right? I wonder if they were thinking that. Excellent commentary, Jessica.